Astha is contributing to analysis in several IEA publications. Her focus areas are energy data management, system integration of renewables, distributed energy, policy review, and clean energy investments. She's also Asia Edge Fellow. She has worked previously in TERI and has MTech in Renewable Energy Engineering from TERI SAS. Thank you, Astha, for agreeing for this interactive session.
Thank you very much. And thanks to Zeenath and Mr. Pradeep for inviting me to deliver this talk on renewable energy, the global and Indian scenario. I understand from Zeenath that you all have a very interdisciplinary background. So I'll try to keep my talk as simple as possible. But of course, coming from a policy background, it's going to be a little difficult. But anytime, after my talk, if you have any questions, please feel free to jump in. So, and I won't take much of the time, so I'll keep my talk very, very brief. So my talk will be divided into 3 aspects. I'll start with the overview of global renewable energy sector, move on to the Indian renewable energy sector and what are the opportunities there, and then provide you some focus of the areas that I personally consider very important in the space of energy transitions, which is distributed energy and bioenergy. I hope you will be enjoying the talk as well. So just on the global front, most of you might be aware, if not, renewable energy contributes to about 35% in the total electricity production globally. And the leading countries for renewable energy generation include United States, China, India is one of the key country, Germany and Brazil. Further, as per the IEA estimates, in 2025, renewables are expected to overtake coal to become the largest source of electricity generation worldwide. Of course, hydropower will continue to supply almost half of the global renewable electricity generation. And in general, what we are seeing globally is that renewable energy has become the mainstream source for electricity generation. Many countries are also striving towards 100% renewable energy goals. And just coming, because I think so the COVID pandemic and what the situation is for the renewable energy sector is also relevant. So I will just touch upon how things have changed. So even in the times of COVID pandemic, when the global energy demand declined, electricity generation from renewable energy showed resilience and strong growth facilitated by reassuring policies of priority access to grid and continuous installation of new power plants. So despite the pandemic-induced supply chain challenges and construction delays, renewable capacity additions in 2020 expanded more than 45% from 2019. And it is further expected to account for 90% of new power capacity expansion globally in 2021 and 2022. Now, this was, of course, due to several factors, but there were policy deadlines in key markets such as United States, China, and Vietnam that propelled such global capacity additions. Further, on the biofuel side, global transport biofuel production in 2020, they anticipated a decline by 12% from its 2019 records. And this was again due to, the reduction was due to the lower transport fuel demand, as several countries went into lockdowns, and lower fossil fuel prices, which ultimately diminishes the economic attractiveness of biofuels. But of course, this is expected to come back again as there will be rise in transport fuel demand. Now, despite these economic uncertainties, investor appetite for renewables remained very strong, and it was also witnessed by the auctions, which was not only held globally, but even if you look at India, they did not stop the renewable energy auctions. The government was still going on it. So, even though the COVID crisis had led to the overall energy decline in the energy demand, but we still saw that renewables stood their of course, because of policy support, but in general, the kind of benefits that they offer. But COVID crisis has also introduced new challenges for renewable energy, which includes the constraints on financial availability, the reprioritization of government budgets, and electricity demand uncertainty in general. But however, we still feel that the cost reductions and sustained policy support are expected to drive this growth of renewables beyond 2022. And therefore, IEA, when they came up with a new net zero emissions roadmap for energy sector by 2050, they estimate that almost 90% of global electricity generation in 2050 will come from renewable sources, with solar, PV, and wind together accounting for nearly 70% in the mix. And of the total global bioenergy demand in 2050, about 40% will actually come from the liquid biofuels and biogases as compared to the traditional biomass at present. And the biofuels and biogas demand will be concentrated in sectors which are hard to electrify or which require low-cost dispatchable source of renewable energy. Now, a transition of such a scale and speed to achieve net zero goals cannot be achieved without sustained support and participation from citizens. So IEA has been working together with their member countries on a global commission on people-centered transitions. And they also estimate that around in their net zero pathway, around 55% of the cumulative emission reduction are linked to consumer choices of how they consume energy, particularly in the transport and building sector. Also, behavioral changes in particular to the advanced economies could also provide around 4% of cumulative emission reductions in general. So this was more on the global perspective. I'll now start with some of the specifics for the Indian for India. So India is blessed with all forms of renewable energy sources. And as you know, that Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has great estimates for solar potential, which is around 750 gigawatt, wind potential of around 300 megawatt, solar small hydro potential of 20 gigawatts, and bioenergy potential of 25 gigawatts. So renewable energy in India was historically promoted as an alternative source of energy with focus on decentralized energy technologies, which could be provided as localized solutions to clean energy access. But later, to achieve the goals of long-term energy security, sustainability, and in response to climate change, the Government of India launched a dedicated national solar mission and further raised ambitions with the nationally determined climate commitments to Paris Agreement. As the cost of renewable energy technologies declined, renewable energy is now considered in the mainstream of India's energy mix and currently contribute to about a quarter of total power capacity in India. Further, with advanced energy storage technologies coming in, India is also promoting domestic manufacturing. And all of this is in light of the Atmanirbhar Bharat, or the self-reliance strategy for enhanced energy security goals post-COVID recovery. Today, India's renewable energy installed capacity stands at 100 gigawatts. And this has been possible with ambitious targets set up by Government of India and several policy measures that include renewable purchase obligations, tax benefits of accelerated depreciation, supporting land acquisition, and building evacuation infrastructure. All this has spurred the development of large-scale grid-connected solar wind parks in the country. Now, India is a diverse country with renewable sources being geographically dispersed. The western and southern states are blessed more with wind and solar potential. Hydro is more dominated in north and northeast states, and bioenergy across the agricultural states. So while hydro and bioenergy sources could support the balancing of the grid, because our intent is to integrate renewable energy in the grid as much as possible, but solar and wind sources are more intermittent in nature. And this intermittency of renewable energy sources like solar and wind could be overcome by several measures, by integrating them with storage technologies, building flexibility in thermal power plants, promoting measures for demand response, and promoting interstate power trade, etc. As India diversifies its energy mix and plans to expand and integrate large-scale renewables into the power systems, there is an immense untapped potential of distributed systems, which also offers huge opportunities and bring in socioeconomic benefits. Historically, these systems were deployed for energy access purpose, but now with achieving universal electricity access, changing dynamics of power systems and energy transitions, renewable energy could be deployed more as distributed energy sources in the coming years. So such distributed energy sources have great potential to cater to many demand sectors. For example, we already see a lot of prevalence of solar rooftop systems in the buildings and in small and medium scale industries, which is ramping up. And we're also looking at solar water pumping in the agriculture sector. So, these distributed energy technologies are penetrating into these demand sectors. And as more and more clean energy penetrates in these demand sectors, the consumers are expected to take much central and active role in energy transitions. Therefore, also under the electricity consumer rules, the government of India is encouraging consumers to take more active role, and they call it as prosumers, which means that you're not only involved in consumption of electricity, but you're also involved in producing of electricity, and that's why the term as prosumers. And in this regard, India rolled out the rooftop solar program and an innovative Kusum scheme to promote such distributed technologies that could lead to reduction in transmission and distribution losses. And how does the distribution technologies lead to these losses? Is because it brings generation closer to the distribution. So the more your electricity generation is closer to the distribution, you will have your T&D losses will go down. They expect to increase farmers' income by supporting electricity generation on the and utilizing the wastelands that they have, and then exporting surplus electricity to grid, from which the farmers can also make money out of it. And reduction in electricity prices for end users, especially industrial and commercial ones. So the industrial and commercial consumers at present are highly priced and being cross-subsidized by the residential consumers. But having distributed energy technology set up in their own captive places can help reduce their electricity prices as well. So distributed technologies further also provide socioeconomic benefits, like I mentioned earlier. And estimates show that that such technologies can create more jobs for every megawatt of installed capacity as compared to the fossil fuel-based power generation. And rooftop solar tend to be more labor intensive than large utility renewable energy projects. Distributed technologies also bring more reliability and resilience. And there are several examples that demonstrate such benefits being accrued during pandemic, as well as recovering from extreme weather events that India and its neighboring countries are nowadays facing. So how these technologies can bring more reliability and resilience is already being demonstrated, and therefore they're useful if they get more deployed in the country. To unlock this immense potential of distributed technologies and with energy transitions, it is important that the governments frame policies directing investments with sector coupling, which means that these technologies are supporting other sectors like healthcare, agriculture, for example. So how can you direct investments so that you can ensure effective utilization of resources? The governments could also deploy policy measures that can empower the utilities and consumers to ensure secure and reliable, affordable energy supply. Now, some of these measures could include, first, what is important is building awareness campaigns to key stakeholders to showcase the benefits of these technologies. So there are many times where the consumers or even the utility, they don't understand the system benefits that they can get from such technologies, and even the consumers. So how do you make sure that you build awareness around that? Streamlining and simplifying administrative processes. This is very important, including right from your application to your disbursements, to investments. How can you make things more streamlined? And then, of course, improving access to finance and other regulatory mechanisms, including incentives and price signals that can enable demand response. Other measures include promoting energy storage technologies integrated with rooftop systems. So, for example, the energy storage technologies that we're talking about right now are being built at a large scale, and rooftop systems are considered as behind the meter. So how can you integrate energy storage technologies behind the meter? Because that will ultimately reduce the consumption of diesel, because that has been generally used for backup power in general. And what the other measures could also include enabling digitalization and smart systems for better accounting of energy and management of energy. Moving on to bioenergy. Well, bioenergy is a very versatile renewable energy source that can be used in all sectors. Currently, India's 12% of energy needs today is met through traditional uses of biomass, such as fuel wood, straw, dung, charcoal, etc., which are inefficiently burned for cooking applications in the rural areas. And each year, the air pollutants emitted from combusting traditional biomass indoor cause around 600,000 premature deaths. Well, on the other side, sustainable use of bioenergy or modern forms of bioenergy like biofuels or biogas can not only avoid negative impacts such as increased deforestation, competition with food production, but can also bring health benefits from reduced air pollution. In addition to providing solutions for energy security, modern bioenergy brings several other co-benefits of sustainability, such as solutions to waste management, environmental friendly biofertilizers, reduce methane emissions from inefficient combustion and waste decomposition. Sustainable bioenergy can provide a valuable source of employment and income for rural communities in India. Now, there are several feedstocks that can be used as a source for modern bioenergy. I'm sure you might be knowing some of them. So animal manure, food waste, crop residues, segregated municipal solid waste, non-edible crops, etc. Animal manure are amply available feedstock and is particularly well suited to the production of biogas. On the other hand, several states like Haryana, Punjab, Rajasthan, and Uttar Pradesh are burning around 40 million tons of rice crop residue that we call as paddy straw. It has been burned by these states. And this residue is one of the major cause of air pollution in Delhi. And we'll see it in the coming months. We'll start from mid of October to the middle of November. But this paddy straw has the potential to be converted into bioenergy products, and government is now looking into promoting co-firing of such biomass with coal in thermal power plants. So that's a way in order to utilize the biomass residues in a more sustainable manner. On a large scale, for many years, India has been building biomass power and cogeneration plants, primarily for the provision of local heat and power in the industries. And biogas, which is the byproduct of a sugar industry, has been extensively used for cogeneration and then exporting surplus electricity to the grid. That's on the electricity side. And coming to the biofuels, where again, these are exciting times for bioenergy, I would say, because in the initial days when ministry had started working on renewable energy, biogas digesters for families were supported. But then in the last 1 or 2 decades, there's lot of traction which went to solar and wind. But I think so this particular year and the year before, there's a lot of traction which is coming back to the bioenergy sector, and a lot of government initiatives, because I think so they realize the potential that the sector holds. So government has also set targets for transport biofuels as a means to reduce the need for imported crude oil. So there's a target of 20% blending of bioethanol with gasoline by 2025 as transport fuel. And there are feedstocks such as agricultural residues or surplus food grains or industrial waste that could be used to produce bioethanol. Efforts are also underway to develop the supply chains to produce biodiesel. We don't have a lot of biodiesel production in the country, but what they're looking at as a feedstock is used cooking oil. So used cooking oil from hotels, dhabas, how they can procure and produce biodiesel, because if you keep using, there is a limit as to how much you can use the cooking oil. It has impacts on your health. So if they can use that used cooking oil to produce biodiesel, that's one of the approach that the government is looking at. And also there is this scheme of sustainable alternative towards affordable transportation. The government has a production of a target of 15 million tons from 5,000 compressed biogas plants by 2023. So compressed biogas is more like a purified form with high methane content and very similar to the commercially available natural gas that we have. And these compressed biogas plants is expected to provide an additional revenue sources to farmers and generate direct job opportunities of about 75,000 and lakhs of indirect jobs. Also, with energy transitions, biomass-based gasification technology is now considered as one of the innovative tools for hydrogen production in India. That's also something the government is looking at. While there are several opportunities, there are challenges that exist in bioenergy production in general. Challenges include the supply chain management, adequate remuneration to farmers and other producers of waste. There are competing uses of bioenergy for non-energy purpose. For example, the animal manure could be used in several places as source for cooking fuel. Several residues which are collected from the field are then used as a fodder for cattle. So there are competing use of bioenergy. So how do you navigate from there? Technology optimization is required, which is not there at present. There are high upfront costs for technology. There are financing challenges, and then there is lack of guaranteed off-takers of bioenergy in general. Further, what we also feel is that there is lack of concerted efforts by the government of India on promotion of bioenergy. There are several ministries, from Ministry of Petroleum to Renewable Energy, to Agriculture, for example, or Ministry of Power. They're working in silos and as per their mandates. And therefore, there is this lack of interministerial coordination to boost the overall bioenergy sector. And that's why this sector is somehow not has seen the light of the day. At the same time, it's also important to recognize that the feedstocks for bioenergy remain the same and they're limited, right? So if you're using it for biogas, if you're using it for biofuels, you have a limited stock and they remain the same. Also, availability of data on feedstocks for bioenergy is a challenge. You don't have a lot of data available in public domain in which you can understand and make several policy decisions. But several ministries are now trying to come up with a database as they promote bioenergy projects. Biomass waste is also mostly locally produced and consumed. Therefore, involving communities in bioenergy value chain becomes all the more important as government plans to invest in such projects. There are opportunities to use bio energy products for transport and industrial applications. And it also provides additional benefits of local job creation. I can give you an example. Biogas is a very versatile fuel. So it is used, biogas is produced from animal manure generally. And then there are several applications. So once you have the biogas, you can use it for electrification. So maybe you can electrify the animal homes or maybe electrify the places around. It can also be converted into compressed biogas, like I mentioned before, and can be used for local transportation. So bio-CNG in the vehicles, or it can be used for cooking fuel for local industries, in small industries, sweet shops, in local, as local source of consumption. And this using it as a cooking fuel also, has a potential to replace conventional fuels in those industries. So yeah, overall, I'd like to end by saying that along with these large-scale grid-connected renewable power plants that the government is promoting in general, the distributed technologies and bioenergy have great untapped potential and offers opportunities that are closer to consumers, that would enable consumer participation in the process of energy transition, and that ultimately could ensure a very secure, reliable, and affordable energy access to all, which is envisioned by the government of India. So I'll stop here. Thank you everyone for your patient listening.